Hello there, good evening. It is exactly 5 days to Christmas, and this is Starr today here on Starr FM. You're welcome. And coming up in the broadcast, majority in Parliament blames NDC MPs for failure to pass expenditure in advance of appropriation, leading to imminent government shutdown by end of month.
Majority leader, he wanted to use these issues that I've mentioned, to say that do them, and then we also bring the budget. Okay, because we refuse to bring them, they told the finance minister not to come. But I think that there's a law that allows us to do this, so we may have to invoke the law and see what happens.
But minority counters with accusations are the lame duck majority is seeking to sabotage President Mahama.
Majority leader, he wanted to use these issues that I've mentioned, to say that do them, and then we also bring the budget. Okay, because we refuse to bring them, they told the finance minister not to come. But I think that there's a law that allows us to do this, so we may have to invoke the law and see what happens.
Tonight on Starr Today, we place the spotlight on the implications for the country as clock ticks closer to the end of the year, plus tell you the options available to the incoming government. Also in this broadcast, military officers to be deployed to coalition centres as EC prepares to resume collation of results in some 6 disputed constituencies.
There will be a joint police and military deployment for the exercise. We wish to caution the public that non-accredited persons will not be permitted at the center. Also, the task force would like to urge the political parties to refrain from inciting their supporters.
Meanwhile, President Mahama has some strong words for the Electoral Commission and wants them to be consistent and fair with the application of the electoral rules.
The Electoral Commission said no, there can't be any recollection once a declaration has been made. In the same circumstances, declarations have been made. If people have a grievance, they must go to the courts and redress those grievances there. We don't think that the goalpost should be shifted depending on who is at the other end of the stick.
And much later, Ghana Medical Association warns of surge in cholera cases as we approach festive season, as minority urges government to take action before things get out of hand. And later in this bulletin, we set with Priority MP Davis Ansa Opoku. We have the details of this and many other stories making up this 1 hour 30 minutes broadcast. Do stay.
Starr News is coming to you live on Ultimate 106.9 FM in Kumasi, Empire 102.7 FM in Takrady, Zeps 95.9 FM in Zebila, Nissim 100.1 FM in Lamshao, MyStar Radio in the USA. Also live on Facebook on Starr 103.5 FM and on starfm.com.gh around the world. This is Starr 103.5 FM. Starr News. Informed, in depth, in touch.
Thank you very much for your company. This bulletin is streaming live on Starr 103.5 FM on Facebook. I am Tutu Dunn. So you're once again welcome to Starr Today. We start off in the House of Lawmaking because the majority in Parliament has accused the minority MPs of disrupting government business. On the floor, the NPP MPs argue the government's inability to get the expenditure in advance of appropriation laid is as a result of the disruptive behaviours of the NDC MPs. Now, the majority had wanted a trade of the passage of the mini budget with approval of the 2 Supreme Court nominees, tax waivers, and passage of the free SHS bill. The minority, however, insisted the House attend to only the mini budget and a few other bills. Speaker of Parliament Alban Bagbin, after waiting for the presence of the Finance Minister, Dr. Mohamed Amin Adam, to no avail, for the 5th day running, adjourned proceedings to January 2 next year.
Honorable members, in the absence of any further corrections, the official report of Monday, 29 July 2024 is hereby adopted as the true record of proceedings. We end up with the official report of Tuesday, 30th July 2024. Any corrections? Honorable members, in the absence of any corrections, the official report of Tuesday, 30th July 2024 is hereby adopted as the true record of proceedings. Honorable members, following from our yesterday's proceedings, I this morning held pre-sitting conclave meetings with the leadership of the House, and in the spirit of the agreement and in the national interest, I proceed to adjourn the sittings of this meeting till the 2nd of January 2025. Honorable members, the sittings of this meeting have been adjourned to the 2nd of January 2025. It is so declared.
That was the Speaker of Parliament, Alban Sumana Kingsford Bagbin. But the developments will mean that Ghana will, for the first time, record a government shutdown where the 2024 Appropriation Act expires by December 31 without a new one. Speaking to the media after proceedings, Minority Leader Dr. Kasiawalta Forson assured the Vice President, Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman, will present the mini-budget immediately after swearing in on January 7. Dr. Forson accused government of failing to respect Article 80 of the Constitution.
I wish to start by saying that the NPP government has failed to comply with Article 180 of the Constitution of the Republic of Ghana to present the expenditure in advance of appropriation. In the spirit of good transition, it is expected that the outgoing president, acting pursuant to Article 180 of the Constitution, would have acted in good faith and bring before this Parliament a proposal for expenditure to cater for the first quarter of the year 2025. This was very important because the Appropriation Act for 2025 will come into force will not come into force on 1st of January 2025. Sadly, President Akufo-Addo planned to leave the public service uncatered for in the first quarter of the year 2025. However, let me give assurance to the people of Ghana and all stakeholders that the NDC government that will take office on the 7th of January 2025 will act with dispatch to cater for expenditure for the first quarter of the year 2025. There's no cause for alarm, ladies and gentlemen. Even though there will be no finance minister on the 7th of January 2025, the Vice President can present to this House the expenditure in advance of appropriation anytime after swearing in on the 7th of January 2025. And this House will be properly constituted to expedite the approval of the same expenditure in advance of appropriation. While we are very disappointed about this development, we want to caution the outgoing Akufo-Addo Bawumia government that they will be responsible for all unmet commitment and obligation of state from the 1st of January to the 7th of January 2025.
That was Dr. Kasiawalta Forson, the minority leader. But the majority leader, Alexander Kwamena Apenyomarkin, however, has his own accusations. According to him, the NDC MPs and the Speaker are to blame for the developments. The Afutu MP, however, assured he and his charges are ready to return to Parliament anytime the Speaker recalls the House to attend to the mini-budgets.
We have called you here this afternoon to put across to you certain happenings that led to the adjournment of the House to the 2nd of January 2025. As you may be well aware, since Parliament resumed, the NDC minority has done all it can to frustrate government business. In Parliament, the procedure when a matter is introduced is to lay the paper, a referral made to a committee, and when the committee is done with its report, same is presented, debated, and a decision taken. The strategy of the NDC has been that in spite of all these procedures, they will not allow any paper to even be laid. Neither will they allow a report of a committee to even be tabled, debated, and all that. We've had Supreme Court nominees whose vetting Parliament has concluded, and we are to table that report for motion to be taken on. They say they won't even allow the all-important free SHS bill. They again say they won't allow that to also be laid, let alone for the committee to take it for the bill to be considered.
Alexander Kwamina Apenyomakin, the majority leader there. Now speaking to parliamentary correspondent Ibrahim Al-Hassan, MP for Bolibamboy Yusuf Sulemana accused the majority of sabotaging President Mahama with the refusal to present the mini-budgets for approval. He, however, assured workers will not suffer as a result of the developments.
It's because the minority, so let me say majority, the MPP side of the House are trying to sabotage the newly elected government. We all know that under normal circumstances, this will have to be passed before we adjourn the House, Senate, or we even bring the House to a closure. Unfortunately, they want to tie our hands to certain things that we thought are not right. For instance, you are asking us to pass tax exemptions, and we all know that the tax exemptions, the kind of deals that have gone around, we are aware. We shouldn't shortchange Ghanaians. Pass these tax exemptions for some individuals to make money out of it. I mean, that's what the kind of party the NDC is. So we say we won't do it. Again, you are asking us to also approve the judges. I mean, the country is not coming to an end to today, okay? The world is not coming to an end today. I mean, tomorrow is there. So what we are saying is that leave those ones. The new president will come on board and decide who to also appoint as a judge. So I don't see why they wanted to tie our hands. And so that is why we will not be able to pass it. In any case, you and I know that as soon as we come back, we will pass it and we'll move on. That's why God has spoken to Ghanaians. We have gotten absolute majority. And it's for these reasons, some of these reasons, that God has spoken to Ghanaians that it is the time for Mahama to come and continue.
Majority leader just spoke to us, and he talks about the fact that you were being chaotic. You were going to be rowdy. I'm talking about the minority side. And that's how come the finance minister could not turn up in parliament to present the expenditure in advance of appropriation. What do you say to this?
No, I think that this is something they planned long ago. Yesterday we listened to the majority leader. He wanted to date. He wanted to use these issues that I've mentioned, to say that do them, and then we'll also bring the budget. Okay, because we refused to bring them, they told the finance minister not to come.
That was Yusuf Sulemana, the Member of Parliament for the Bolibamboy constituency, in a conversation with our parliamentary correspondent Ibrahim Al-Hassan. But he's here with me in the studios now. Ibi, thank you very much for your time. So, for the fifth time running, the finance minister has failed to make an appearance in Parliament to present the mini budget. I mean, you have been monitoring parliamentary proceedings. Help us understand the impact of this decision on the country and the country's finances.
Well, so per Article 180 of the Constitution, which makes provision for presentation of a mini budget, in simple terms, or expenditure in advance of appropriation. It simply means that there is an appropriation bill that ought to be passed by Parliament to give the President the legal authority to spend from the Consolidated Fund. The Consolidated Fund is a fund that contains the country's revenue. So when government makes money, the money is paid into an account. That account is called the Consolidated Fund.
Right.
And it is from this fund that government gets its own day-to-day funding. And so Parliament is expected to give the President the authority to spend from this particular fund. And that is why every year there's a budget presented, after which an appropriation bill is passed, it's assented to, and it becomes an act, a law, clothing the President with the power. Now, in election years, because there is uncertainty as to who becomes the President, who becomes the Finance Minister, Article 180 gives whoever is the Finance Minister the right to represent the President and then asks for some amount of money to be spent in January, February, and March.
That's the first quarter of the next year.
Year. Now, and this has been the practice since this constitution came into effect. Now, it's usually done in November. So this ought to have been done 2 months ago.
Okay.
Right? Now, because we all know what happened relative to Parliament going on break here and there, which is minority, which is majority.
The court issues and all of that.
Exactly. So latest, because it's supposed to replace an expiring legislation, which is the Appropriation Act 2024, which will then expire by the end of this month, there's still time for it to be done until 31st of December. But then the House will also have to rise for the Christmas break.
Absolutely.
MPs will have to go to their constituencies. So this recall of Parliament was ostensibly to attend to 4 main issues. Then the Ghana National Boundaries Bill that has been passed, and you talk about some other 2 bills relative to parliamentary work. That's equally in the offing. You talk about the Environmental Protection Authority Bill, which yesterday was almost passed, but of course it couldn't see the light of day. And then, most importantly, this expenditure in advance of appropriation. Now, on Monday, when Parliament resumed sitting, the Finance Minister was not there. On Tuesday, this bill was advertised. This paper was advertised on other paper. And that was where we got to know that government is seeking approval to spend an amount of 68 billion Ghana cedis for the first quarter of next year. Third day, the Finance Minister was nowhere to be found. Fourth day, yesterday, then Dr. Kisela Tuforsen, because usually it's either the majority leader presenting this paper on behalf of the President, the Finance Minister, or even the minority leader, because it's not always the case that the government of the day will have the majority leader on its side.
Right.
So it's possible for even a minority leader to present this paper. So yesterday, Dr. Kisela Tuforsen made the application that, see, we are coming to power. And when I say we are talking about the NDC in his mouth and in his words. So if government is hesitant in laying this paper, allow me to lay this paper as a minority leader. There was back and forth, and then Habib Idrisu, who is a deputy majority whip, explained that, no, there's no need. This is a constitutional requirement. The Finance Minister will do it on behalf of the President. The Finance Minister has given us his assurance that he will show up tomorrow.
That is today.
That's today, to do the presentation. Speaker then agreed and yielded to the fact that, yes, indeed, this is a very critical matter. And once it's from the President, his Minister of Finance is supposed to take it. Today we show up in Parliament. The House was supposed to sit at 10 a.m., no show. 11 a.m., no show. At midday, no show. 2 p.m., no show. Getting to 3 p.m., and then the House decided to reconvene, still without the presence of the Finance Minister. And so, therefore, Speaker then decided to adjourn till next year, January 2nd. Now, here's the thing. There are demands from the majority side. Right. They have a number of items that they want taken. Loan agreements, tax waivers, approval of 2... no, in fact, this one has got to do with some Supreme Court justice nominees. 2 of them, they have been vetted, and their approval has been on hold. Now, the argument is that once this 8th Parliament attended to them and then vetted them, and the recommendation is that they must be approved, their nomination must be approved by majority decision. Majority decision here means that the NDC members on the committee disapprove of their approval. Now, NDC MPs are saying, the minority is saying that no, leave that to the next president. Tax waivers, leave that to the next president.
Okay.
Yes.
Ivy, I'll come to you shortly for an extensive conversation because I heard out of Forcing and, of course, Suleimana Yusuf make some pronouncements. But we have on the phone now Professor John Gache. He's the Dean of the University of Cape Coast School of Business. Prof, thank you very much for joining us here on Starr today. Now, first off, what does this decision by the Finance Minister mean to the country's finances?
Well, are you referring to not laying and passing the...
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, what it means is that it poses some difficulty to spend from January. But we still have some few days to fast-track the passing of this budget for the next 3 months from 2nd January, if Parliament so decide to do so. But beyond that, the new government also has a responsibility towards the people of Ghana. And the good news is that they have a number, and that can be fast-tracked just a day after handing over. So that will be the alternative. But I must also put on record that there is now a confusion as to how to deal with the finance minister, because the finance minister virtually reads budget on behalf of the president. So it is the president that will be held accountable and not the finance minister. But again, when you read the Public Financial Management Act, it puts that responsibility on the finance minister to ensure that those things are done. If it is not done, then there is some repercussion. But when you put the two together, bearing in mind that every budget is at the instance of the president, then it becomes very difficult who you are going to be held to hold accountable. So the alternative is that when the new government comes into force from January 6 midnight, the following day, they can present the 3-month budget and pass for Ghanaians to be paid at the end of the month, and other obligations in terms of payment of liabilities can be made during the first 3 months.
No, Prof, no, the majority, insists that there are some tax waivers to be approved. What's your take on that? Because the majority believes that those tax waivers are essential.
It will be unconscionable for the NDC to have the majority to pass the tax waivers. Bearing in mind that the NDC has put in manifesto aligning tax exemptions to tangible technology transfers, tangible job creation, and then tangible contribution to both revenue and the growth of the economy. And that should be monitored and measured over a period of time. So if that is the principle of the NDC on tax exemptions, then it will be unconscionable to go and pass a tax exemption at dying moment of the MPP government. That will not be measured, that will not be monitored, that will not be in the interest of the state. So I'm sure the NDC will not do that. And if passing of this appropriation bill is linked to the passing of an exemption, then I think that the MPP government will go against the Public Financial Management Act and the Constitution, and but that will be a good price to pay if you don't approve over 300 million Ghana cedis or so, and you have the authority to remedy that just the following day of coming into office. then that's I think it's a discretion that should be carried on.
Now, there are some fears that, per this decision taken by the Finance Minister, if I may put it that way, public sector workers may have their salaries frozen. Is that a genuine fear?
That fear will not arise because public sector workers will be paid up to December 31st. And we are only talking about first week in February, first week in January, and no public sector worker is paid first week. Even the military and the other people who are paid, in 2 weeks and the rest, by that time, or the new government would have put in place that appropriation for the first 3 months. So I'm not sure that we are going to feel the effect of this decision.
Now, there are some people who say that given the decision by the majority not to present the mini budget, their emoluments should be withheld. Do you agree?
That is the case, but the truth of the matter is that most of them are paid the ex gratia by the end of December. And so I'm sure most of them will receive their ex gratia and their emolument by the close of the year. So they will not get to be affected.
Prof, thank you very much for speaking to us. Professor John Gache is the Dean of the University of Cape Coast School of Business, IB. Now, you heard what he had to say, and we also heard Ato Forsen and then, of course, Suleimana Yusuf, who said that this was no cause to worry.
Yes, and that's a day, in fact, the same day that the new administration will take over, the vice president, then, that's Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman, can be handed the mini budget for her to present, because usually, whenever the vice president comes to parliament, he's deemed to have the same powers as members of parliament. The only power the vice president will not have is a voting power. He will not have the power to partake in any voting exercise. But he has all the privileges of a member of parliament. So yes, indeed, Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman, if the party so wishes or government so wishes, on January 7th, after her swearing, can head back to parliament and then present.
So that is an option available.
That's an option available.
Okay.
Yes. And then the president can also choose any member of parliament, like happened with Osiche Mensah Bonsu, presenting the budget in the absence of Ken Ofori-Atta, who had taken ill then. So the president can ask any member of parliament who of the 9th parliament from the NDC side to present. But of course, like Dr. Kesela Ato Forsen said, the vice president is clothed with the powers to do the presentation if need be. What this means is that as the NDC is in opposition today and is yet to take office, it ought to start preparing its own mini budget. But then the question will be, will the officials, party members, the president, and then his kitchen cabinet and the people he's working with be able to have access to official figures? Because the estimates are informed by what is existing in reality, not anybody's imagination. So how much do we have in the kitty? How much debt do we have on our books? How much commitments do we have?
They may not have access to all these.
They won't have access to those information. The handing over notes might contain some of these pieces of information, right? But then to have a full picture, you have to take office. You have to assume office.
So contrary to what they are saying that it is not cause for alarm, it looks like it is a cause for alarm, because if there's no transparency, how then do we understand what the country's financial status?
Well, so what is to happen is the approval from Parliament. Once Parliament gives an approval, so for instance, the NDC knows that government was seeking approval for 68 billion Ghana cedis. If it's able to present that same amount and get the approval, it's now up to the new administration to go and search for that money. Because the money, in fact, even what this administration, if this approval had been done, this administration would have still had to go and search for the money, and then whatever is left in the consolidated fund kitty, basically the withdrawals will take place from there. If it's not enough, like I said, you have to look to other alternatives in finding the money for the first 3 months of next year. That's what governance is about.
Absolutely. Ivy, thank you very much. Ibrahim Alassan is our parliamentary affairs correspondent, also the head of our political desk. You're still listening to Start today. We have a lot more stories for you after this break.
Get ready for the ultimate celebration of African culture, the African Festival. 3 spectacular nights await you at the Accra International Conference Center. 2 electrifying plays by Lateef Abubakar on the 28th. Don Quixote, Africa, and 29th of December. Ghana Must Go. And 30th December, the Afro Night concert featuring the legendary Yvonne Chaka Chaka. Experience more magic as you step into the den of history. Embrace adventure with Common Rise in the desert. Marvel at the iconic pyramid of Giza. Nelson Mandela Capture Site. Explore the food festival, a world of fun for the kids and more. Dial *714 *70# or visit theafricanfestival.com to join Africa's biggest culture night at 250 cities per day or 600 cities for 3 days. Hotline 0571 900 900. The African Festival is supported by EIB Network, powered by Globe Productions. The African Festival. Africa awaits you.
Starr today. First, fast, and credible.
You're welcome back from the break. This is still Starr today here on Starr FM. I'm Stuart Dunn. So let's move away from Parliament and go to the courts now, because military officers are set to be deployed to collation centres across the country as the Electoral Commission prepares to resume collation of results in some 6 disputed constituencies. Now, this comes after an Accra High Court ordered the EC to proceed to collate and declare parliamentary election results for the said constituencies. Now, the court, presided over by Justice Reverend Joseph Owusu-Agyemang, also ordered the Inspector General of Police to provide adequate security to the EC at all collation centres. There are more details in this report.
Now, the battle lines have been drawn, and the EC's decision to seek recollation in some of the constituencies and redeclaration has been affirmed by the High Court in Accra after the court presided over by Justice Joseph Owusu-Agyemang held that a mandamus application filed by the 5 parliamentary candidates of the New Patriotic Party urging the court to compel the Electoral Commission to collate and declare the result of some of the disputed areas have been affirmed. The court said in relation to Suhu in Samamba Drejiri, Ablekuma North, Ablekuma Central, Tema Central, and of course Techima North, all of them, the court has made an order compelling the Electoral Commission to recollate and declare those results. The court has also ordered the IGP, the Inspector General of Police, to provide adequate security to ensure that the collation centers are safe for the EC or officials to collate and declare those results. Again, the NDC, the National Democratic Congress application seeking to stop the Electoral Commission from recollating and declaring especially results in some of the constituencies that had already been declared had been thrown out. The court said that particular areas had been declared by the EC as having issues with legality, and so the court cannot be called upon to affirm a results or collation of results that has been deemed to be fraud. Counsel for the NDC, ADG Tamaklo, had this reaction moment after the court decision.
How is Jane Mensah going to deny her own letter in response to the minority? But that notwithstanding, the judge says, without any contrary evidence from the EC or a deposition by the returning officers in their respective places, that the declaration that they made was fraudulent. But the judge said it was fraudulent. Where he got the evidence of fraud, I don't know. Somebody must come to court, put a rival evidence of fraud before you, or duress, and prove it. The EC only came and said on point of law. In fact, the Electoral Commission's own lawyer never talked about the videos. But the court said those elections are tainted with fraud. How he came to the conclusion that there was fraud, I don't know.
But what is the reaction of Frank Anodompre, one of the candidates whose request has been granted for recollation and declaration?
Well, I think the court did its job. I anticipated it and it happened. So glory be to God. But it's not done yet. We are going for the collation and declaration, which
you are certain
Yes, of course. We also have done our work. Internally, we have collated the results that we know we won. That's why we're patient. So we are just waiting for the processes to begin. We pray that they do it as soon as possible. I can't wait to be in Parliament.
From the NDC side, it be bright for Taman Central and Baba Sadiq have this message for the people.
What is sure is that from day one, it wasn't ever going to be easy, and I've always fought through it. So I still stand resolute in my quest to represent the people of Tema Central. I'm glad that on this occasion they have partnered me in that quest and have voted for me. And so, as I've promised them always, I will always remain your soldier, I will always remain your leader, and I will stand and fight till we exhaust every possibility to protect your verdict on my behalf.
I've always been confident that any process would confirm or affirm the fact that we duly won the Kaiku Central constituency. We have been very confident from the start, from the get-go, regarding the fact that we won and the fact that we have all the necessary documentation to back it.
Clearly, the decision of the court is that the EC should proceed to collate and also declare the disputed areas from the High Court in Accra. Murtala Inusa, GH1.
That was my colleague Murtala Inusa with that report there. But in a response to the court's ruling, the National Election Security Task Force says it is ready to provide security at the coalition centers. Well, this follows accusations that the task force failed to provide adequate security to EC officials. Director of Public Affairs for the Ghana Police Service and spokesperson for the Election Security Task Force, ACP Grace Ansa Akrufi, addressed the media earlier today.
The National Election Security Task Force and the Electoral Commission on 19th December 2024 held a meeting at the National Police Headquarters, Accra, to discuss issues pertaining to the outstanding collations in some constituencies. At this meeting, the Electoral Commission informed the task force of their preparedness to proceed with the outstanding collations and requested the task force to provide the needed security. The task force assured the Electoral Commission of its readiness to provide the needed security for the outstanding collation. In addition, the Commission reminded the task force that during the collation, only individuals accredited by the Commission should be allowed access to the collation centers. In this regard, there will be a joint police and military deployment for the exercise. We wish to caution the public that non-accredited persons will not be permitted at the centers. Also, the task force would like to urge the political parties to refrain from inciting their supporters to mass up at the collation centers to disrupt the process. We wish to state that throughout the election period, including this post-election phase, the National Election Security Task Force has put Ghana first. We have put the peace and security of the country first, and we will continue to do so. We therefore invite the good people of our beloved country, including all stakeholders in this election, to work with us in this endeavor.
Grace Ansa Akrufi is the Public Affairs Director for the Ghana Police Service. Let me come into the studios now and have a conversation with our legal affairs correspondent, Murtala Inusa. Murtala, thank you. You have been in court the entire time. Why did the High Court dismiss or order the EC to recollate and redeclare the parliamentary election results for some of these 6 constituencies?
Okay, Vanessa. So 2 different cases came up today. Mm-hmm. The first one was in relation to the one filed by the National Democratic Congress.
I mean, we knew they were going to go to court today.
Absolutely. The National Democratic Congress on the 16th of December. Then the NPP side also filed DS on the 17th of December.
Okay.
Now, when the matter came up to court, in respect of what was filed by the NDC, they were seeking for a declaration in the form of, they were seeking a judicial review in the nature of declaration, certiorari, prohibition and injunction. That is what the NDC is seeking. The NPP side were seeking for a mandamus, And when the cases came up in court today,
I mean,
it was the
before you-
mandamus
before-
application. Okay.
Before you continue, help us understand what this mandamus application all means.
So you note that the EC has issued a directive,
Mhm.
had a press conference, and stated
To
that
recollate.
there were some constituencies that they were going to collate.
Right.
Some of them have been deemed to have been declared already, so we were going to recollate. Now, this very mandamus application sought to ask the court to compel the EC to do it, even though the EC is saying that it's going to do it.
Okay.
Compel, they can go back and say we are not doing it again. Compel them to go and do it.
Okay.
And who are the parliamentary candidates who filed this particular mandamus application? Here they are. If you look at that particular one that was made, you could see Frank Anodompre, member of parliament, absolutely, was the first on the Monday. In fact, Charles Forcing, Tema West, Tema Central, Frank Anodompre, we mentioned Sungu Adwejiri, Patrick Yao Buamwa, Okaikwe Central, Martin Kweku Eje Mensa Kosa, Techiman South, Nana Equia Usu Efriye, Ablekuma North, and Eric Nana Ajiman Prempe Ahafo Ano North. These were, they filed it separate individually. Now, when the matter was called, it was the soon in Sawama Adwejiri one that was called for. And the mandamus application was never opposed to by the Electoral Commission. The EC says that they do not oppose. And once the other party is saying that we do not oppose, straight away, it means that the court's hands are just off, just granted. And then the court granted that of the Sawama Adwejiri. Now, Ablekumanov came up next. Then Eduji Tamako, who was also waiting for the other leg of the case to be called, said that, look, my lord, the way the things are going, we saw the mandamus application and we quickly filed this morning a joinder motion to join that party because we here are an interested party. The court looked at the document and took a view that no, it cannot be admitted. The NDC side cannot be allowed to be part of the mandamus application because there were certain processes they needed to have exhausted by way of filing a joinder motion.
Right.
So the court listened to the mandamus application on its face and then granted the in Sawama Adwejiri, then Ablekumanov. Then LDG said, no, that cannot happen because the tangent in which the court was proceeding, it means that the court was going to declare all these areas that have been mentioned. And some of the areas were also the subject matter of their application that they have filed. So what is the effect? The court said, I am dealing with my case. Let me finish. When I finish, I will turn to you. So you note that in the course of the hearing, apart from making the public pronouncement that Sawama Adwejiri and then Ablekumanov, the EC should go and collate and declare. The court was silent on the rest, even though indirectly associated the other decision of the court in relation to Ablekumanov and Sawama Adwejiri to it. That side came to us. So in effect, the court has granted their request for the EC to be compelled to go and collate and declare those areas that have been already declared.
Right.
That was formed the basis of the NDC's argument. They made the argument, they said, look, the EC is clear. Declarations have been made on the grounds. And so on what basis is the EC saying that they were illegal and they were going to seek for or collate the results again? And they made references to instant. In fact, they brought exhibits by way of the EC's returning officers, the declaration that they made, the videos of all of them, constituency by constituency, all the returning officers making the declaration. But the court, they urged the court to play it in open court, but the court did not agree to that. And then the EC came in and said, look, whatever processes the NDC is seeking in court is premature. The EC is still in the process of collating results, and you are coming to court to say that they should declare results have been declared, so the EC should not be allowed to recollate. The judge looked at the situation and said, look, the declaration made on the face of it, the EG has alleged that it was done illegally, and the court cannot be invited to stamp on an illegality.
Okay.
So that request was refused.
All right, Musala, thank you very much. Musala Inusa is our legal affairs correspondent. I believe that in the coming days we'll see how this development unfolds. But we'll still stay a little while on it because President-elect John Dramani Mahama has expressed worry over the conduct of the Electoral Commission in addressing the disputed parliamentary results. Now, speaking during the courtesy call on him by the NDC professional forums in Accra, President Mahama stated that EC must be consistent with its mandate and not change the rules when it suits them.
Sometimes bureaucracy has a way of slowing things down, and I know some of you get frustrated and all that. I can assure you that I'm going to have a very open door so that we can help you remove any obstacles that are in the way of the good relations and economic cooperation that exists between our countries. There are a few outstanding issues arising from the election. As you are aware, 9 constituencies are in dispute, and we think that the Electoral Commission should act in a principled manner. You cannot change the rules when it suits you and apply different rules when different circumstances exist. There was a particular case in 2020, and the Electoral Commission came out clearly that if a declaration had been made, it was not the duty of the Electoral Commission to adjudicate it. The courts were the right place to go. And so if a declaration has been made, it doesn't matter under what circumstance. They're saying that somewhere under duress. In the case of Techimansa, it was under duress. There were soldiers in the collation room. There was chaos in the collation room when the declaration was made. And the same arguments were passed that, there should be a recollation. And the Electoral Commission said, no, there can't be any recollation once a declaration has been made. In the same circumstances, declarations have been made. If people have a grievance, they must go to the courts and redress those grievances there. We don't think that the goalpost should be shifted depending on who is at the other end of the stick. There's one particular case in which there was no declaration. We can understand that. And so the Electoral Commission has to make